Hi, everybody. I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the assignments and how they kind of fit together and that kind of thing, because you can be more efficient if you understand what you're trying to do and how your pieces of it all fit together. You can kind of set it up in a way that will save you time at the back end. I've had conversations with a few of you, and I think that this might be helpful to share with the class in this format. So I'll try to keep this quick, but hopefully this helps. So think about each week we have essentially, and yet last week there was a quiz or a warm up, we call them, but essentially each week you've got the discussion questions or prompts, and you're thinking through these concepts and sort of bouncing ideas off each other, and that's the purpose of the discussion, and that is incredibly useful. And I love seeing people who are kind of really processing this stuff together. And then the writing assignment for that week is pretty much about the same things. And you're sort of taking these things that you've been, let's say, digesting, these ideas, and putting them into writing assignment. And this writing assignment, it's each week is a piece of that project, we're calling it, for the final in the term. So you're basically doing segments of each of it, uh, segments at each point, and then at the end you'll kind of pull it together into one big paper, which is great because then you get to practice like writing an academic paper, and I can give you feedback on the writing process, and you can figure out citations and all of that stuff now. When I can give you that feedback, and then you'll go to the next classes, and then you'll be ready to hit the ground running, which is ideal. Then that's why I'm trying to build in all these little tips and things like that so that it just takes you less time later. I know you're busy and you're doing high quality work, so why not just find ways to be more efficient? And you're learning to be a student, and getting those skills down is a priority in this class. Okay, so there's this big project. What I think is really important for you to know is that not only is this an academic paper, so it needs things like this is the time to practice, needs things like a title page. Um, in your project, you have a scenario that you've chosen. Think about your reader, and I'll get to this in a little bit more detail here in a moment, but think about your reader and what they need to know about that scenario. Because you have the context of, it's an assignment that you know about in the context of a class that you're taking on these topics. Assume that your reader doesn't have any of those things. So they're going to need an explanation of what the scenario is. Um, Honestly, even I don't remember the details of all of the scenarios really well. I kind of have to brush up every time I teach the class, remember exactly what, the workplace scenario or the whatever it is. Um, help help me out. Help your reader out is actually a better way to think about that. Um, so an introduction to, or a summary of that. Also an introduction to the guidebook. So this paper is designed not to write to me, but you're writing it as a guidebook or an orientation guide. If it's more of a workplace scenario, if it's a more personal scenario, um, my that's slightly different. And what I would encourage you to think about, I was telling somebody earlier, is write it sort of like it's a screenplay. And here are the different characters and, for instance, their bias and the narratives that come up for them are going to be based on their specific life experiences, their views, whatever it is. Um, your reader needs to understand those things so that they understand what how the bias and the narratives and all of those things are actually playing out between different people. Basically, think about it through the lens of your reader, who is not me, and once you've written whatever it is that you want to write, go back and look at it and be like, okay, what do they actually still need? Let me jump back to the paper requirements kind of piece of this. What it needs to be to to be our practice writing an academic papers, it needs that the title page, an introduction. Um, it needs a summary of the scenario. It really should have transition words and phrases, and you can just Google that. It's pretty easy to find. But basically, what that does is once you delete, when you download the template, that is sort of a skeleton to build a paper on. But if you've gone through the signposting videos and things, we're getting rid of all of that. That is the skeleton nobody wants to see. Your reader just wants to read this paper guidebook or whatever. There are questions that you're responding to that are in the prompts or implied in the prompts that your reader's not going to have. So you need a transition sentence to sort of move from one section to the next, one topic to the next. Be looking for those things. And then at the end, hopefully you're, working in our coursework or other readings that you have done on these topics. I would say just stick to the coursework because you're doing that anyway. If you have questions about how to cite things, let me know. But cite things along the way so that your reader also has access to those resources. And then at the end, there's in-text citations you'll do in the body of the paragraph, for instance. And then at the end, a sources cited section where you put it all together. And essentially what you're doing is like, if you're citing the module, it would be like SNHU 2025. Sorry, SNHU, comma 2025 in parentheses. I should paint a picture here as opposed to just assuming you know what I mean. And then at the end, you have the same, but then like the full citations so that somebody can actually find it. And if you look at the Purdue OWL thing, that will become a lot more clear using APA, by the way. That's the paper stuff. It's great practice. Again, I'll be giving you feedback along the way. I strongly encourage you to use the resources that we have, and I've been putting that in the feedback. So see that for some of those resources. But use those resources; they are incredibly helpful. They're a lot of the reason I got to be a better writer was doing the same. Because you're not just paying for the class; you're also paying for all these other things that supplement, and you can learn a lot there too. So definitely use those. I don't want this to get too long, but I hope that paper part is clear. The other part that I alluded to earlier is that the purpose of this paper is to be that guidebook. Um, and hopefully that's mostly clear already. But if you're ever sort of wondering, like, what is this supposed to be, this thing that I'm writing? Imagine that you're writing this for somebody who is new to whatever the scenario situation is. It could be like a friends and family gathering type thing. It could be a new workplace. It could be school. But there's somebody who's walking into this place, and you are providing them a document that can introduce the concepts that we're learning about. You're becoming an expert in them. You are sharing that expertise with them and saying, this is how these things look in this place. This is how we do things. Hopefully that helps kind of give you a frame for how all the assignments fit together, the purpose of both the paper and how and why we're writing a paper, um, and also your audience for that paper, the guidebook part. If you have questions about this, let me know. We can set up a quick Zoom and talk through it in more detail and use specifics from your scenario. But I hope the context is helpful, because the more that you write for that, like if you know the template's going away and you can start to write paragraphs that lead from one end to the next, then when you get to the end and you have to put it all together, it's mostly done and it won't take a lot of work. That is my hope for you, because I don't want you to be overwhelmed at any point. What I love about the way this course is built is that it kind of walks you through building it piece by piece by piece. So it's never overwhelming at any point. Hopefully, hopefully. If it is, let me know. Okay. I hope this is helpful. If not, let me know. Um, and I should end this now. So I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to our discussion boards this week. Take good care.